Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to HIMediaTV. I'm your host, Evan from HIMediaTV, and welcome back to HIMedia Headlines. For today, June the 26th, 2026. Steam Machine. I want to be perfectly honest. I think that the Steam Machine, broadly speaking, was... I do believe Valve has it priced just well enough that it's, they're not selling it at a loss, which I think is really important for a couple reasons I'll get into later. So the Steam Machine costs basically $1,000 for the base version. If I say $1,000, by the base version I mean 512 gigabytes, no controller. I believe it's $1,100 for the Steam Machine for that model with a controller, $1,300 for just the base 2 terabyte model, and then $1,500 for the 2 terabyte model with a controller. Now, granted, this pricing wise kind of puts it out of the reach for people who are looking for a console, and it's putting it a little bit out of reach for people who want a, decent computer in the form of the 2 terabyte version. And this sucks. And, they have obviously said this is patently just because of the RAM shortage that is going on. I would bet money that the highest end version. The big thing is that, if the RAM shortage wasn't a thing, the current options for the Steam Machine would be significantly lower. I would bet that they would have tried to have priced the base version of the Steam Machine to like $700. I mean, in an ideal world, they probably would have had the Steam Deck be like $350. And then everything else according. I think the highest version, the 2 terabyte model with the controller, probably would have been at most like, $1,100, $1,200 max. But again, RAM shortage notwithstanding, here we are. Now, there's plenty of people who have been basically asking, hey, why don't you sell it at cost and stuff? And that would essentially lead to there being no Steam Machines available for, the average gamer. Why is that? Because there is right now a desperate need by so many companies and so many, both large and small, that are in desperate need of more computers, and more processing. And what would end up happening is if Valve had sold these at cost, we would have ended up with a environment where all these companies are just buying up all the stock of the Steam Machine, and outside of people who get it through the lottery, nobody would be able to buy one, because all of these companies would be buying them up to use for their own purposes, because they're like, oh, hey, a computer that has the specs that I need at under market price, let me buy them all the fuck up, because of course they would. And that ultimately would result in, just nobody getting these until the RAM prices drop, which would suck ass. And by then, so many companies will have had the Steam Machine hardware so integrated into their stack that they would just keep buying them and stuff as time goes on, and the issue wouldn't necessarily rectify itself. So that's part of the reason why, I understand why they're selling it, even if they are a little bit over at cost. But it's sad. I want one. I would love one, and it's part of the reason why I'm glad Valve did the pivot, forcing, out the SteamOS and instructions on how to set it up and making it compatible with even more types of hardware. I don't think the Steam Machine is dead. I don't think the Steam Machine has flopped. But I do think that it's going to be a handful of years before said Steam Machine ends up becoming something that, the price goes down and it ends up being more useful. I'm just hopeful that the price goes down before inflation makes the current price of it, in line with what it should have been now. But that's just me. Regardless, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this episode of High Media Headlines for today, June the 6th, 2026. If you like this episode, join our Discord. We've got a great community and we'd love to have you. Link in the description. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, this has been HIMediaTV. I have been your host, Evan from HIMediaTV, and I will see you guys next time.